Right. So yeah, welcome everybody. So yeah, this is our coaching workshop. So we've got people from Middlesex FA and also London FA, and that work on the kind of the coaching side. So I'll let them introduce themselves when it comes up to their workshop. But we're also joined by Steve Daly, who is part of the role models program with the FA. What I'll do, I'll hand you straight over to Steve because I'm sure he can do a better introduction of himself and I probably won't do him justice. And so Steve's just going to do like a short presentation of kind of his journey as a player to kind of a coach and kind of his role in disability football. So Steve, I'll just share my screen now.
Hurting games.
They ran. I'm on a course. They've got to eat their dinner. What do you think they're doing there?
Yeah, cheers, Lauren and Connor. Thanks very much for inviting me on this is the second workshop I've joined for the whole program. So really grateful for your kind invite, and hopefully I'll give you a little bit of a snippet into my journey. So for those that don't know me, Steve Daly was ex England captain for the Parsi-sided squad for 25 years, recently retired, believe it or not, nearly a year ago this month, reaching back-to-back World Cup finals. So it was a career over 25 years of playing for the national squad. Yeah, Lauren, if you want to jump on one of my slides, please. So really, because obviously this particular workshop's about coaching, it's less probably about me playing to now looking at my transition. Recently appointed in March this year as the head coach for the national squad. And it's probably around that, the journey about coaching and obviously having a visual impairment and the barriers maybe that is posed over a number of years. So I was really fortunate. I played under only 3 England managers in a 25-year career, and 3 wonderful men, really. Tony Larkin, who was the real man manager, so really knew how to get the best from you as an individual, and really wanted you to play for England, and was good at trying to motivate you to always give your best, whether the result went the right way or not. Graham Keeley, who's in the top left there, for those that have been around the FA and football for a long time will know Graham. Was with the FA for a number of years, very instrumental in creating the mentoring program for the FA, helping support with the coach license program. And it's great because George Ferguson's obviously on the workshop as well, and I played with George for nearly 15 years, and George will probably tell you some of Graham's attributes and skills. A real mentor to probably people like myself and George. And I think Graham's real key stuff was around about standards, what it meant to play for England, and some of the real things that you would expect from an England player, about your commitment, your dedication, about the standards before you even get to put on an England shirt, and then the standards when you actually represent England. And I think Graham taught me a lot about the expectation, not just as a player, but as a captain, and creating your own style and knowing at the right time when to say the right things, and knowing what certain people need, and obviously how you support the coach in terms of on the pitch. So I played on the Graham for about 10 years, which was fantastic. Learned so much from Graham. And then just to the right there, Ian Bateman, who's still with the FA now. Ian is the national lead for the FAYCD program. Very different to Graham in terms of, Ian recognised that his role was very much about building on what was already there. So when the foundations is already in place, it's about how do you get players to make decisions? How do you get players to think at the right time without always being instructed? So again, broke down that I think we sometimes we're obsessed with these titles or roles of what people are, but really it's about what you bring to the whole team, what you bring to the whole squad. How do you unite the team together? And Ian's ability to delegate and bring in the right people to maybe take us to the next level. And I know John Whittingham's on the phone again. Worked with John for a number of years, who's around our England squad, and recognizing the strengths that some people will bring that you necessarily will not have. And I think that's important. So really, they're the people that have been quite influential in terms of me developing my coaching style. And there's a couple of little pictures there where, again, the young lad there in the Preston, James Galt, who is deaf. And again, my role was to try and mentor the likes of James from an early age to support him to start his coaching journey, because as much as I'm trying to develop my skill set, I think it's also important that you have to consider supporting the next generation of young coaches that want to come through the system, because not everybody wants to necessarily be a player. And some people's skill sets are different to what maybe you pose. So I think this whole sort of slide for me is about what I've learned is the ability to bring people in around you that will help develop you in terms of either your coaching role or as a person. So my role at the minute with our England team is making sure that I've got the right people. So people like Mark Forrest, very technically gifted coach, John Whittingham, very great organisational skills, but then also tapping into the foundations that got our England team to where they are. So I'm really keen to keep people like George, ex-players in the game that will help develop players, because I don't feel it's one person will develop a person. I think it's a collection of people that looks at individuals to determine how do we get the best from them that will ultimately lead to the improvement within that team or that squad. Do you want to just jump forward, Lauren? And I suppose that the last little bit for me around coaching and what I've learned being around them people is how do you leave a legacy? Because I think at some point we will all leave the game, however long that lasts. But the bit for me is what impact have you had on the game? What have you left the game? What skills have you passed on? And I definitely think in the last 10, 15 years, coaching has really evolved about how we share knowledge, how we welcome people's opinion, how we maybe learn to challenge each other. Because I think that's the only way that we all progress within the game. And I think if you're at a stage where you think you know everything about the game, then you probably don't know anything. So really, obviously, if any of you have been to St George's Park, they look at players that have created over 50, 100 games. So, my bit would be is how many of the current England squad that we've got will go on to play a long time for England and probably achieve success. And to get that, then what has been my role and the role of all my staff to make those people feel that they've given their best, so it's how we squeeze everything out of them at that level. But then that's not necessarily to say the same at the grassroots level. So there is a difference at what level you coach, and understanding your role within that setup and being able to adapt to the players that you do have. So I think that's important, because even though I work with an England team, I also coach at grassroots. So yes, my philosophy may be the same, but the style in which I'll deliver that will be completely different. So, I don't think there's enough young coaches or any coach, male, female, with a disability in the game. I think we need to do a lot more. I think we're doing really well to encourage more people to play the game and maybe support the game, but I'm not sure we have done enough to make courses and the pathway for coaches more available and more accessible for people with disability. And that's something I'd really like to see or help or support, to give people that opportunity to coach at the level they want to coach at. And to do that, you need the right people around you and the right people to want to create those opportunities. So yeah, it's a little bit of an introduction to me. Hopefully that's give you a bit of an insight. I'm really interested because I know some of the people on the panel and probably in the audience who are really good people, and I can tell want to make a difference, definitely in the area from London and Middlesex, but I think nationally, I think we all want to make a difference and we want to make a change. So hopefully collectively we can start to do that.
Great, thanks so much, Steve. Really good insight there. And what I'm going to do now is pass you over to Neil, Shannon, Paul and John, who are just going to talk a little bit more about kind of the coaching pathways and maybe touch on a little bit of what you were kind of talking about, Steve, in terms of getting more disabled people on that pathway and in that workforce. So I will pass you over to them now. And yeah, whoever's going to talk first, feel free to unmute yourselves and be in that workshop.
Can you make me the host, please, Lauren? Sorry.
I'm just doing that now.
Thank you.
There you go, Neil. You should be host now. So you should be able to share your screen.
Hi there, I think it's me first. So I'm Shannon and I work with Neil at the London FA in the Coach Education Department. And I'm going to pick up a bit on our 100 SC programme because I'm one of the leads on this, and we do it in conjunction with Middlesex and the Amateur FA. It is a female bespoke programme at the minute, but I wanted to talk you through it because as Steve was saying earlier, I think it's going to be a good one that if this is working for us progressing the women's coaching pathway, then it's something we could implement in the future for a disability coaching pathway. So the 100 SC came from the FA's quite ambitious women and girls strategy, which wanted to double not only participation in playing, but in the workforce. And we recognised that there was a willing and ready female workforce there, but they just needed that extra step to get to the next moment. And we wanted to continue the high standards of coaching within the female game as well. So it was important that we were creating a programme that wasn't just about giving people qualifications, it was about getting these individuals and supporting them throughout the whole stages of their journey, and that we could take them and, yeah, like I said, not just go, here you go, there's a qualification, off you go, but we were there every step of the way. So if you just pop onto the next slide for me now. So this is what our timeline looked like. So we're on our second cohort now. We had a cohort for the 19-20 season, and we've got one for this season. Obviously with COVID it's been pushed back a little bit, but so the main so we started off with the workshops they had introductory workshops, so we got them all together. And the beauty of these sort of programs is that we're able to create a good community and a network in which these coaches had people to rely on and people to talk to. And what came out of this from our last cohort was there was a really sense of community and coaches were supporting one another. And we could introduce coaches to one another. We also have our host clubs who take on the girls as coaches, and we've also got the tutors. So we've got a small group of tutors that run the workshops, but also the mentoring for the girls. And it was a way of introducing everyone and picking up on any fears they had. And majority of those fears was about confidence, which I know for disabled coaches, confidence could be something which is it's quite scary to stand in front of a group of people and tell them about football. And we wanted to help alleviate any of those apprehensions people may have about coaching, because it takes a lot for someone to stand there and do it. And we wanted to be able to provide a space to say, it's okay to say your fears and it's okay to say what you're worried about, but we won't let that be a problem for you come your next stage. And so we have 48 host clubs. So these are clubs across the capital who have put their hand up and said, we want to improve our women and girls football teams and our coaching. And they are taking on the coaches from the 100 SC programme, and they have to, for a minimum of 8 weeks, but we found that majority of the coaches do stay on at that host clubs. And for one, help the girls get actual coaching experience. So they were in a coaching environment, coaching every week, and likewise for the clubs, it gave them they gave them a volunteer at the end of it. And 9 times out of 10 they retained their coaches as well. And it was important for us that it wasn't just about, it was about getting actual coaching experience, and that can happen even with COVID. As soon as football started, we were like, okay, girls, let's get going on that. And so we also had a mentor team. So I know we picked up on the mentor scheme. At the minute, it has been put on pause by the FA, but we've got hopes that it will continue again in the future. And for us, we've got a group of tutors who said we're willing to give up the hours, and we have said we're willing to pay you to do that. So we have a small mentor group who are going and giving the girls feedback in the coaching environment, and they being able to have developed further. And we've also signposted them to CPD online and also the FA Playmaker, which is a good introductory course to everything. And then, once you've done all that, that's when we look at getting you on level ones, getting the girls on level 1s and level 2s. So I think this kind of scheme really highlights a journey. It's not just about, okay, there's level 1, next level 2. And it's definitely something that it would be brilliant to pick up and implement into getting more disabled coaches coaching, because it's just a brilliant way of supporting individuals. Yeah, and I think that's my spiel on the 100 FC. I'm not sure who's next on there. But yeah, that's just a general like infographic of how it sets up. But yeah.
Great stuff, Shannon. I think it's over to me now. So my name's Paul Sharp. I'm the Coach Development Officer at Middlesex FA. I've been with the association now for 15 years, working in the coach education department. So seen a lot of changes as we've gone through the years to how the coaching pathway runs, how the different courses run and what different courses we can offer, and how we can support people within the county ourselves and cross-bordering with London and the other local county FAs that we've worked with in the past. So just to get things started, Neil, if we can just go on the coaching journey link, and there's a short video on there about the coach education pathway and how the courses run from there. So if we can load the video up, that would be fantastic. Don't know if it's just taken a little while to load or if the link's not working, I'm not sure.
If it doesn't seem to load, is this something that we can send directly to attendees, Paul?
Yes, so we can send the link from there directly afterwards if it doesn't work. Neil, does the pathway link work?
Sorry, I was watching the video then because it would come up to me. What I might do is just pop it in the chat so people can pick it up if they want to. Just watch it. Would that be okay?
Yeah, I think that will work fine. Would the pathway link work as well, or would you need to?
I'm not sure. If I click it now, let's have a look. Is it just coming on my screen? Or is that open
It's
now?
still the original PowerPoint, so I don't know if you have to change.
Yeah, if you go back to share screen, Neil, you can then alter the screen that you're sharing and put it onto the Internet Explorer screen that probably has popped up on yours. There we go.
There we go. So that might work with the video now, Neil, if you try the coaching journey one.
Okay. Okay, is that now playing?
There we go. Okay, now I don't think the sound's come through too well on there. So what we'll do is as well, we'll resend the link, and you can have a look at that in your own time. That will have the sound of the video on there as well. So Neil, if you can open up the other web page, that would be great, with the level 1 coaching course. And I'll just talk you through how the pathway's looking at the moment for the courses that we deliver through the various county FAs. Now, there are going to be a number of changes coming in the new year to how the pathway is delivered, how the courses are run. So a lot of them are moving from a more face-to-face version to a digital format moving forward. But as it stands, Neil, if you can just open the FA Level 1 in Coaching Football link.
Sure.
There we go. So the level 1, it is our entry level course at the moment. So that is open to anyone that's 16 years of age or over. It's an introduction into coaching players that are under 7s through to open age. And there's a total of 7 workshops that are delivered throughout the level 1 course. And it's a mixture of theory and practical throughout. So you'll be led by a course tutor amongst a group of 18 learners on that particular course. It normally takes 4 weeks or so to complete, but we do offer differing forms of the course. So we run it over different formats. So sometimes on Saturdays all day, or on weekday evenings. And we do that so that there's the need there and to suit everyone and how they want the course delivered. As part of the course as well, you get your first aid qualification and safeguarding children qualification. There's a number of online modules as part of the course that you complete. And as you can see there, it's got the details of how the workshops are delivered. So workshops 1 and 2 about building a practice, workshops 3 and 4 developing a practice, through to 5, 6 and 7. So there's no prerequisites for the FA Level 1 course as it stands at the moment, bar completing the first aid and safeguarding, which you get as part of the course qualification from there. And through the counties like ourselves, Middlesex and London, we normally offer, I would say, us at Middlesex, about 50 or so level 1s a year. So there's a lot of courses that are available, and I'm sure London, in a similar form, deliver the same sort of amount of courses as we do. As I said as well, they are moving the way they deliver courses from April onwards. So as it stands, there aren't any courses available for level 1, but moving forward, there is the FA Playmaker course, which Shannon briefly mentioned, which is a great place for people to start their coaching journey now. That is available free of charge online to do, and it normally takes about 4.5 hours to complete. And there's another number of modules that you do to complete that qualification. Once you complete the level 1, you'll be given feedback from your course tutor. They give you information as to when they think you should move on to the next level, and how you move on to the next level. And then that would normally be the FA Level 2 course. So Neil, if you can just open up the details on the Level 2. Okay, now again, the Level 2 is open to anyone who's 16 years of age or over. You need to have completed the FA Level 1 before you can move on to the Level 2. So that would be your next logical step from completing the Level 1. You need to be actively coaching with a group of players who are age 7 or above, and they need to play in organised fixtures either throughout a season or organised through schools or other organisations, so you can complete a course project. Now the Level 2 is delivered over 3 blocks. Block 1, which is how we coach, that's normally 4 days. So you would complete that block, and then from there you have a break of normally 2 or 3 months in which you put into practice what you've been taught on the course. You receive a visit from your tutor. They come into your own coaching environment and give you feedback on how you're doing and support you from there. You then come back and then you complete the block 2, which is over 3 days. Again, you complete that block, move on, have a couple of months break from there, and then move on to the block 3, which is the how we play. During that time, whilst you're going through the level 2 course, you complete your own projects towards that. You get your 2 visits from your course tutor, and they will sign off your learner journal and your in situ visits from there. So in all, the level 2 itself normally takes about 4 to 6 months to complete. You do have a 3-year registration period to complete all aspects of the course. So you can go at that course at your own leisure. You don't have to complete it within the time frame of the course itself. It's structured so that you can do that at your leisure, at your own time, at your own pace. And you've got that extra tutor support there throughout the course. They will come, be part of your coaching journey, support you on your in situ visits and see you through the journey from there. And then probably the next course on there, Neil, if you can just have a look at the UA for B, that'd be fantastic. So the UA for B is the last course that we deliver through the counties as part of our core courses, as it were, at the moment. Obviously, this will be changing going into the new year. So the UA for B, that's open to learners 18 years of age or over who have completed the FA Level 2 course. Now, the UA for B, that is, again, run over the course of a season. So between the 9 and 12 months it takes to complete the course, you need to be coaching ideally in the 11v11 game. And the other priority list for the UA for B will be in the women's game from tiers 1 to 5. So the UA for B, there's an application process for that candidates go through counties at the moment, based on the selection criteria there, as Neil's showing. And then ourselves at the county, along with our coaching workforce, we will make a decision on who the 24 learners are that are selected to attend the UA for B course. During that as well, you need to be the lead coach at the club you work with, and you'll receive 3 visits in your own coaching environment on the UA for B. So that's, again, it's run over the course of a season. There'll be 4 blocks for that, which I believe is a total of 9 sessions for the UA for B. So each county would normally run 1 UA for B per season. I think London normally get a couple of UA for Bs in, but through ourselves at Middlesex, we run 1 UA for B as it stands. So that's the coaching pathway that we deliver to at the moment. As I said, moving forward into the new year, FA Education are going to take on a lot of the coach education courses and how they run moving forward. So the level 1 from April 2021 will move online. We're just waiting on some further information as to how that will look and how that's going to be delivered, if there's going to be any bespoke support that we can provide for disabled coaches that are looking to take the course in an online format. I know Lauren's been looking at some work we can do to support people get through the Playmaker course initially, and then give feedback and then help them through the level 1 and continue their coaching journey from there. So Neil, if you can go back to the first slide that we were on, that'd be fantastic. Okay, so the next part on there is the disability pathway. For now, we're just going to leave that because I think John's going to cover that in a little more detail when he's due on from there. There are other courses within the coach education pathway that we run. So there are the goalkeeping courses, futsal courses that we run as well, referees courses, and more bespoke and individual courses that we run. But that, from me, is pretty much how we deliver our coach education throughout the county. And I think Neil's going to have a little chat now about learner support and how we can assist with disabled candidates if they need any additional support and help them through their journey from there. So that's all from me. So thank you everyone for listening, and I'll pass you over to Neil.
Thank you, Paul. Sorry if I let you down a bit there. I'll post the video in the chat. I was happily watching that away. It's very good. It's about a minute and a half. This is, like Paul, I've been in post now for 16 years, since 2004, in the coaching department for 14 years. And over the time, we've got some positive outcomes. We've always had the odd disabled learner, albeit through either a learning disability, physical disability, but it's become more and more prevalent with just the probably the awareness of us and the key inclusion tactics that counties and everyone's willing to make it work. So we've got some good luck stories here. And Aaron Ferguson was a person that came when I first started in 2006, and he did the old level 2, which if you don't know is a very different course than Paul's just explained. And he had a war of attrition trying to pass, just due to not only the county not being able to support him as well as it could, probably the qualification at the time, which has now changed into its current facet, didn't really tailor as well, and that's what Steve led to and explained in his presentation, was that I don't think people were really aware or had the skill set and understanding and the empathy to allow people to flourish with disabilities. So now that's moved on, but I'm very pleased that Aaron was able to pass, and we helped him right the way through it. I'll come on to how that looks, because there's 2 tiers of support that counties as an approved centre can deliver. A few years ago, we did an inclusive level 1, which was delivered by a Middlesex FA member of staff, but London FA tutor, Chris Abel, for the Down syndrome. And there was 10 people that passed that, and it was something you had to consider with understanding the capabilities and needs, and it was mainly to do with understanding the level of concentration and fatigue that myself wouldn't be fully aware of, but working with Connor and Steve, who was the disability officer at the time, we made the course, we tailored it to meet the needs of, to make everyone feel comfortable, so that everyone got the right understanding and level of support needed. So the flexibility of the level 1, there are 7 3.5-hour workshops. They're generally done over 1 full day of 7 hours. So you could, with an hour's break in between, so making it an 8-hour day, we made that a shorter period to allow for check and challenge and understanding, and just making everyone feel more at need. We have a person called Abdul Hamid who's partially sighted, and we had to adjust his resources, so you can order that. So if someone needs bigger text, bolder text, we've had learners with Braille who had Braille journals over the years, and we've also had people. My mother uses Makaton because she's deaf in one ear, partially deaf. So the interpreters we've had over many years in many different courses. So with that support is there through the BSL and whatever version of disability that they would have. But that's just a fleeting example of what we can deliver and what we can do. So the additional support and then definition is us as an approved centre. We have to provide this reasonable adjustments. I won't just read everything out because it's quite clear there. But if anyone needs to get in touch with us, or say that they are either wheelchair bound or they are partially sighted, or in Abdul's case, he needed a certain level of text for his field of vision, so we can adjust that in time so that he was able to read and support that. Likewise, if they need signers as well, we will organise that as well. But this is just our responsibility as an approved centre, that we have to do this to provide the learner with every possible chance to attain the award. And it goes alongside what Paul said, with how and where we fit into it. And that's what we do, that's our role, to make sure everyone has the opportunity to achieve and pass. So that was really all it from myself. I'm just going to pass it on to John. I think this is the beginning of his presentation now. But I just hope it makes you aware that if you have anxiety or you're not thinking this is for you, the courses are for everyone, and we're able here to support you.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Neil. So all I'm really going to try and offer you now is a bit of an extension onto what Paul and Neil have outlined in relation to the coaching pathway, effectively within the mainstream sort of strands, and then probably into linking with some of Steve's experiences, moving into coaching now with myself alongside others on the England Partially Sighted squad. I've been in and around coaching education for a number of years now, and I know this slide looks quite busy, but there are effectively 3 sort of strands that you potentially could work through. Steve and I share a common ambition in the respect that we want to see more coaches with an impairment come through and not only coach at England level, but certainly get involved at local level as well. So the left-hand side on that slide you can see now, which is the red sort of blocks you can see, that's what we would consider to be, I suppose, the mainstream pathway for coaches coming into and then moving up from recreational community-based settings towards national level competitions. So invariably most will start in those local environments, then they might progress on towards national league system, county FA competitions, and then maybe the professional game, depending on the level of qualification they've got and the experience that they have as well. So you can move up and down between those levels, and then as a coach, you can also transfer into one of the two shown in the middle or on the right. So that central band, which is shown in purple, is what we consider to be the pan-disability pathway for players and also coaches to work their way up from very comparable levels between sort of mainstream and disability pathways. So again, the community-based provision at the bottom is the initial entry point that most will get involved with. And then again, you can progress through there in towards county league structures. And at the top, we have the FA's People Cup, which is again a national level competition run by the FA, which disability teams can enter into, and offers an opportunity for various impairment teams to be able to get involved across the board on those national level competitions as well. The right hand side is where we have a more impairment specific provision. So as Steve alluded to earlier on, as a partially sighted player, and I know George is on the call as well, both heavily involved with the partially sighted league, that would be what we consider to be a impairment specific pathway. And again, there's a very common sort of trait between the pathway in the respect of a community-based provision is the initial entry point that most would look to enter into. Oh, just go back one there we go. Before then progressing back up through the pathway towards the national impairment-specific leagues, like the partially sighted league, like the cerebral palsy league, for instance, and then the FA Disability Cup sits at the top of that. What the arrows are trying to indicate is, yes, you can move up and down through the pathway, but equally, and probably more importantly from this conversation, you can also move across those pathways between mainstream pan-disability as well as impairment-specific. So you don't necessarily have to specialise in one particular realm. You can move between each of these where you are potentially aspiring to get to. And then obviously Paul and Neil have outlined some of the ways that counties might be able to kind of help with that. If you just want to move on to the next one for me, Neil, that'd be great. There we go. So alongside the previous slide where you've got the impairment specific and the pan disability sort of provision and pathway, you also have the talent and the elite disability player coach pathway as well. Now, obviously, Steve's given some of his insights into working with one of the elite England squads that we have. They're listed on the right-hand side for you there. But equally, we've got a number of levels that flow downwards from the senior squads into the lowest level, which are called England Talent Days. And again, there's opportunities for coaches with impairments as well as without to be able to get involved in the pathway and then potentially move up and down from the lowest levels, which are more talent identification purposes. So bringing new players into the know around what para-football, disability football is all about, and support them all the way through and up to including the national programs, which include an emerging talent program, as well as the England squads. The indicator on the left-hand side where it says other football indicates back to the previous slide, where players and also coaches theoretically don't need to follow that pathway on every single step to be able to reach the England level. You can enter in at any point on that elite and talent pathway to potentially get involved as a coach and also as a player, depending upon your impairment group and also the circumstances that you're involved in and around. So there are a number of different groups that have opportunities in this respect. So again, there's slight variations and fluctuations in terms of the level of support with certain squads, but invariably most of the pathway is applicable to all of these. So the amputee pathway is only slightly different in the respect that we have referrals going in at the moment to the England Amputee FA. The Power Chair have a separate programme to some degree with the regional and the national programme, just simply because of the way the game is formatted. But ultimately what we try and offer is an opportunity for coaches and players to move right the way through from grassroots towards the elite end of the game. If you can flick on one more again for me, Neil, that'd be helpful. Perfect. So just want to kind of give a bit of an overview very quickly. And again, the information on these is available via the pages that Paul and Neil showed you earlier on. There are three main strands really in terms of disability courses that the FA are currently offering. Again, these might potentially change in the new year when the new course strands for level 1, level 2, etc. come online. But at the moment, these are three courses that are offered. One's a more generic course, so working across all impairment groups, which is the Coaching Disabled Footballers course. On that particular course, which is a one-day event, sort of 6 hours, we cover a number of different principles around aspects including STEP, so how we can change design practice, and also considering some of the wider connotations as far as impairment-specific considerations are concerned. And then we have two impairment-specific ones, which are coaching blind and coaching deaf footballers. These are more tailored towards those specific impairment groups. And again, we look at how the game is formatted, constituted, and operated, because there are some variations. And equally, there are some nuances around how potentially we might work with blind and also visually impaired players, and how we might support players who have a hearing impairment or might be profoundly deaf as well, through the likes of British Sign Language. In addition to those, the England Amputee FA and the Wheelchair Football Association also offer courses through their particular organisational strands, separately to the FA, but they also carry CPD hours. And again, they're very tailored towards their particular impairment groups. All the courses that are on the screen there are 1 day courses run over sort of 6 hours. And the idea is that you have an opportunity to put some of those things into practice on the course, and then obviously take them back into your own environment as well. If you can flick on one more again for me, Neil. Perfect. So just wanted to kind of reiterate something around the coaching pathway, really. Now, Steve, and I hope he doesn't mind me kind of mentioning it, but Steve has recently undertaken and completed and been awarded the FA Advanced Youth Award, which sits at a level 4 qualification on the current coach education framework. But what Paul and Neil have said is absolutely true. We want to try and support coaches coming through, whether you're working with players with an impairment or whether you have an impairment yourself, to be able to achieve these coaching qualifications. And maybe when the course strands change next year, there'll be some different opportunities to gain some support. But the key message really from us is that we want players who are currently partaking within the game to do exactly the same as what Steve has done with his coaching journey, coming in and working as the head coach within the England partially sighted squad. Every coach starts in the same position. How we can support you can be very much tailored to your specific needs. And that's in conjunction with the county FA, but there is support available to be able to go through the coaching qualifications, yes, in the mainstream pathway, as well as some of the disability provision that we have available at the same time. And we've got examples of coaches who have gone through this and achieved UEFA B and UEFA A qualifications, who are now working within the talent pathway in particular, and also within some of the elite squads that we have. So there is opportunity there to be able to undertake these qualifications alongside the county partners. If you go on to the last one for me, Neil, that'd be great. Thank you. So just to touch upon something very quickly, this is an example of one of the slides out of the Coaching Disabled Footballers workshop. And this is around some of the ideas of adaptations that might be possible to bring into your coaching practice, or you might be able to support others with if they're trying to support those with an impairment within your club settings. So again, these are all designed to try and provide inclusivity. So we have what are called open football games, which are effectively where everyone does the same activity without any adaptation, modification. So that might be something like a warm-up or a cool-down, for instance, something which doesn't highlight an impairment or exacerbate an impairment to the point where it becomes something that's more debilitative or openly recognised as being a debilitative consideration. Modified football games are where we talk around that step principle I mentioned on a couple of slides ago, so where we can modify the areas that we work with, so the spaces that we use. We might alter some the equipment that we use. We might alter some of the configurations in terms of the players. So for instance, that might be a simple passing practice where we might have safe zones either inside or outside the practice area, which all players can use, but are then able to be used by particular impairment groups more so. So for instance, cerebral palsy players tire quicker. Within the practice, they might be able to utilise those areas without necessarily, again, being seen as being the odd one out, because they can be open for any player to be able to be used. And again, you can build challenges in and around them to make them a bigger part of your practice. Parallel football games are where we might have sort of separate areas to allow different practices to run at the same time based upon ability. So you might have, as an example, a group who have a football, just playing it around with no movement. You then might have a second group next door where you then have them playing with the ball, and there might be an interceptor in the middle. So now you're increasing the level of interference. A third one then would have a ball in the middle, a defender in there, and movement from the players. And again, players can move between the groups depending upon how they feel. So they can either predetermine that, or the coach can lead that. And again, it provides an opportunity to support players who maybe are finding things a little bit difficult, and equally challenge those who are finding it a little bit easy within the practice. And then the final strand is around an impairment-specific format of the game, which again might relate into one of the impairment groups that I alluded to before: partially sighted, cerebral palsy, blind, power chair, etc. So we run through a number of these practices on the courses to give you some practical ideas and understandings of how you might be able to use them, and also particular considerations that you can throw into the mix around different impairment groups. Hopefully that's given you a little bit of an idea about how the disability formats work, in particular around the courses. I'm not sure who's taking over next. I'm not sure. We're going back to Lauren and Connor. Could be wrong. Right.
Yeah, thanks everyone. I think that was really insightful. We don't have that much time, so I just kind of want to open it up to anyone that's on the workshop, if they've got any questions for, you know, either Steve or kind of anyone that's talked today kind of on the coaching pathway. So yeah, feel free to either pop it in the chat or unmute yourselves and chat. We'll just kind of open that now. Does anyone have any questions? Doesn't seem to be any questions. So it looks like you guys, you job.
What do coaches do for their badges? What do they do on a full-time basis? What do they do?
So in terms of what do they do for their like kind of day-to-day job, or what do they need to do to get their badge?
Get coaching.
Coaches. So maybe what they have to do to get their badge. So yeah, I mean, I'll probably pass this over to the kind of the coaching team, but yeah, shall I pass that over to someone on the coaching team?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do they get their kind of coaching badge? Like, what do they have to do to get their coaching badge?
Yeah, I don't mind jumping in if you want to on that one. So Steve's story at the beginning, Jonathan, gave a really, I suppose, insightful perspective about how he's gone through his coaching career so far, coming out as a player in particular in the last few months. All coaches start in exactly the same place. So you're going to go through the level 1, level 2, UEFA B, UEFA A qualifications. So that's the generic strand you can go through. The biggest challenge really, though, is to take what you do on the courses and then put it into practice with the players that you're then working with. So it's having experience of, you know, being on the grass or being on the court, working with people, finding out what's good for you as a coach. So what you feel is important in terms of how you want to deliver. And then equally what works for the players as well. So it's that hybrid between what works for you, what do you want the game to look like and be like, and then what works for the players in particular environments. So whether you're working with a partially sighted group, whether you're working with a cerebral palsy group, or whether you're working with a pan disability group, or whether you're working with players who have no impairment at all. So every coach goes through the same journey, every single coach. And the biggest challenge is to, 1, get on the pitch and coach as much as you possibly can do. 2, find someone who can then support you with your coaching. So whether it's a mentor, like Shannon alluded to earlier on, having a mentor who you can bounce ideas off. And then the third one is to then look at progressing through the pathway on the coaching qualifications when you feel that you're ready to do that, because only you know when you're ready.
Yeah. Thank you.
Very welcome.
Great, thanks John, and thanks Jonathan. Is there any other questions before we leave? If anyone doesn't want to say now, feel free to give myself or
thank you,
and then we can kind of link you up with the right person in relation to your question. But what we'll do, we'll try and get these slides sent out to everyone. And I think, Shannon, you've already put the links in the chat, but I can resend them as well afterwards. But as I said, if you do have any other questions, just feel free to drop Connor or I email, and then we'll kind of link you in with the right person. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Lauren.
All right.
Thanks for
Thanks,
See you in a bit. That's it.
Thank you.
Last one.